Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. It's a beautiful day here in Southern California after a few days of rain, and super excited to be joining everybody on this session today. It looks like people are sort of slowly jumping on, so we'll give a few more minutes. If anyone's like me this morning, my computer needed to download a doohickey and another widget and kind of make everything work. So I'll give everybody a few moments here to get that done before we get started. And Chanel, are you on video as well?
I am not. I'm saving everyone.
You're saving everyone? Okay. Are you going to stay off of video? I don't want to put you on the spot.
All right, hang on here. Let me say hello.
Well, you have a shiny smile, so let's.
Hello, everyone.
Yep. Good. I still see people jumping on, so we're going to give them a couple more minutes, and then we'll get started. All right, excellent. So let's get rocking and rolling here this morning with D-Tools Cloud and Vital, presenting to you how to maximize profit with D-Tools Cloud. And our goal today is to make sure for those of you who are currently using D-Tools Cloud, you know how to maximize your profit opportunities through the bidding process. And if you're not currently using D-Tools Cloud, maybe this exposes you a little bit to some of the opportunities, while also giving you some business chops in this action-packed 1 hour. So I get the pleasure today of introducing Chanel Spence. And she is an amazing person. I've had a chance to meet her multiple times, face-to-face, also work together over webinars, and just love how full of life and personality she is, always positive, and just find her to be a simply wonderful human. She's also an absolute ninja at D-Tools Cloud and truly a professional at the work that she does. So love that we're able to do one of these sessions together and hopefully more. So
Aww.
Chanel brings more than 16 years of experience in the industry, and as the director of sales for D-Tools Cloud, she's made a huge impact in not just their business, but the businesses of integrators across the country and I think the world. So of course, D-Tools is the market leader in software for the custom integrator community, and they have over 7,000 customers just like you guys. So her passion for food and travel has taken her to many wonderful and beautiful places, and super glad to have her here with us today. So Chanel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Matt, and appreciate the introduction. You and I have been collaborating for a while now, and it's always a pleasure and really awesome to watch you work. You've been an integrator and you have such a depth of knowledge in the industry. And as the president of Vital, your contribution to how dealers can improve their financial data to drive decisions is super impactful. And your passion for data and racing and sport cars are a very fun mix. So we're glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, let's get right into it. Gross margin is the #1 profit lever in the custom integration business. And why would we have gross margin as a topic on the same webinar as D-Tools Cloud? Well, it's because achieving a predictable gross margin requires intentional bid practices in your business. Bidding absolutely sets the stage for strong gross margin. In fact, all of the profit magic that happens in an integration company happens at the bid stage, the first stage of the game. You see, the gross margin on your equipment is pretty well defined. Most of us, under normal circumstances, we know what we buy it for and what we sell it for. So equipment, pretty clear as to the gross margin we expect to make. Parts can be a little more nebulous. because parts are typically bought and sold in bulk. Their usage is rarely tracked from job to job, and they experience frequent price changes, oftentimes upward. Of course, the big variable is labor. The amount of hours a project will take is an educated guess at the very best. The key is to be intentional with your bids and follow a process, which we're going to introduce you to today. And for our discussion today, we will use blended gross margin. This is what D-Tools shows you as your proposed gross margin on your project. So it's going to be easiest for us to talk about that today and focus on the one way that we measure gross margin through the proposal process. Now, blended gross margin is defined as the revenue or the overall price of your project, of course, minus sales tax, so the overall price of your job, less the cost of goods or the cost of materials and items, and also less the cost of your labor as you've input that into the D-Tools setup. So again, blended gross margin, which I'll show you another visualization of this on the next screen. It's the overall project cost minus cost of goods, materials, and labor. Now, as you guys know, labor compensation can be incredibly variable, including productivity, efficiency, all of these other metrics that go into managing the labor side of the business. That should be managed outside of a proposal system, and that's a discussion for a completely different day. There's really no way for, in the bid stage, a proposal system to know how efficient and productive you're going to be on the other side, right? So there's a whole nother discussion to be had there. But again, over and over and over again, we find that the best way to set yourself up for success is to have a solid bid process like we're going to show you today. So because bid systems like D-Tools are not connected to your payroll, they rely on you to enter your per hour cost and to keep up with that as it potentially changes, which these days it does because of the way that we have to go about hiring and compensating our people. So what we suggest is a good starting point is take your average technician wage across your company and multiply that by 2 to account for some burden. Then plan for a minimum of 50% margin. 60% is better. So here's an example. If your average wage across your company for technicians is $30 an hour, again, unburdened wage, use $60 an hour as your cost, and then set your labor sell price for $120 at 50% margin, or even better, $150 per hour to achieve that 60% margin. So again, if your average technician wage is about $30 an hour, you're going to input the cost for labor as 60 and your sell price at 120 to 150 per hour. And look, if your market can sustain a higher number, more is better. That's where we want to start here to talk about our blended gross margin. Now, here's a somewhat confusing looking graph that I promise I will try to make sense of here for you. But this is ultra critical to bidding profitably. Understanding the mix and the margin, and we'll use this as Chanel goes to demo later how D-Tools can show you this exact information for your project. So the blended gross margin that's representative of your proposals is made up of the following mix and margin contributions. First, the mix, which is the left, or I should say the second column, that's the percentage of revenue derived from each of these different categories of what you sell. Now, in the Vital method, we break all of your proposals down into 3 simple categories. Equipment, which is the stuff you get excited to sell, your customers get excited to buy, and most of this stuff has a serial number, right? That's probably the easiest way to think about equipment. Parts is most of the infrastructure items, the consumables, the things that are bought and sold in bulk generally really hard to keep track of. Most people don't track inventory on them. They're usually a lower cost, higher volume product, right? So that's usually parts. The other differentiating factor, and you'll see this here in the third column, the margin we expect on equipment is usually lower than the margin we expect on parts, right? So think about HDMI cables and bulk wire and consumables. These are things we should be able to get at least 60 points average margin for. Equipment, your average margin is going to be lower, and our target is about 45% average. The third category is labor. So equipment, think about that separately as one category of revenue, parts as another category of revenue, and then of course labor, that's the unique value that your company is adding to all of the equipment and parts that you sell, because otherwise those are just commodities. So the mix in the second column, this is our common recommendation for how your proposal should be broken down. 55% equipment, 35% labor, and 10% parts. So each of these categories, as you can see, contributes a different percentage of gross margin. 45% for equipment, minimum 50% labor, and parts we really want to target an average of 60% or better. As you can see, when we multiply mix times margin, we get the overall contribution for that category. So equipment contributes 25% gross margin to the overall deal if you hit the mix and margin target. Labor 18, parts 6. Overall, the blend of that, so if we add up those contributions, the overall blend should be 49%. So at the end of the day, when you're putting your proposal together, and Chanel's going to show us this in D-Tools Cloud, you want to target for that 49% blended gross margin as best you can. Now, something comes up all the time inevitably when we're teaching this to our clients. They're like, Matt, that's crazy. I can't hit that on every job. You're right. You can't. You go to sell a $35,000 projector, right, to replace another projector that failed, you're not going to be able to get 35% labor mix on that projector. It's not going to happen. Chances are not parts either, right? A big shades job, sometimes those don't really equate, right? The shades are really expensive and maybe not as much labor to install those. It's okay. The idea here is to have the targets in place. You all know what an average job looks like. You all know what an outlier job looks like, right? So on your outlier jobs, you get as close to this as you can without getting unreasonable. But on your average job, you definitely can hit these targets, right? So for the sake of discussion today, and again, to better align with what D-Tools is showing you, we are going to include these labor costs at 50% gross margin, which gives us this overall blended 49%. So keep that in mind as Chanel goes through her demo. So what if you're not achieving a 49% blended margin today? It's okay. Here's a few tips that we'll go through now, and then Chanel is going to blend into her wonderful demo shortly. So I've listed a few of these factors that they're kind of easy to bring up and easy for us to say, but they're really hard to implement. But these things can make a huge impact with just very small tweaks in your business. The keys are to ensure that you sell brands and categories that produce strong margins to begin with. And D-Tools is great because it shows you these things right up front, especially with that vendor connected pricing, which is incredible. Then be sure not to eliminate those margins through discounting. Get full margin on all your equipment. There is a service that you're providing in buying all of this equipment for your customers, testing it when it comes in the door, making sure the TV wasn't broken in transport, making sure you got the right stuff, because sometimes that doesn't always happen, right? The amount of admin time to purchase and manage all of this warehousing and stocking, guys and gals, that's stuff you got to get paid for, right? So do not discount the margins on your equipment. You also should be putting your bid through a mix analysis, which Chanel's going to show you today, and we'll talk a little bit more about. You want to ensure that you're hitting those mix targets, 55, 35, 10, or somewhere near there. And today, you can actually do a mix analysis in your existing proposals. What we encourage people to do, especially our new clients, we encourage them to take their last 5 or 10 average size jobs they've sold and maybe even completed, and do a mix analysis on those. Figure out where you stand in those proposals. That will give you some idea of what your new goals should be. Because if you're making a huge jump, like let's say right now you're at 20% labor on your jobs and you need to be at 35, that's a big step. And that can be a shock to the system, right? So maybe if you're at 20, you move to 25 for a few months or 6 months, and then you move to 30, and then you move to 35, right? But the first start is figure out where you are, then put your bids through a mix analysis as you're creating them. And we'll show you how to do that today. You want to stand firm in why you deserve to get paid what you're worth. This is a big miss across the industry. We just love doing what we do, and we can't even believe that people pay us to do it. And we're kind of willing to give away the farm sometimes when people push back too much because we're scared of losing the deal. But trust me, there's a ton of respect that comes with standing firm in your pricing, but also think about the referrals that come from those folks who grinded you down. Grinders hang out with grinders, right? So the referrals that come from those clients that you discounted, they're probably looking for a discount too. And it's just a race to zero for your business, right? So stand firm in what you deserve to get paid for what you're worth. The labor that you do on these projects takes a bunch of commodities and turns them into an amazing system. There's no replacement for that. Your unique value is that labor. Also, today, you guys have all experienced frequent price changes. We're going to be dealing with that as an industry for quite a while because of just the labor shortage and then also inflation that we'll be stuck with. So put an expiration date on your proposals. Stay on top of those price changes. Again, D-Tools Cloud does an amazing job of connecting with your vendors and your brand. Increase your parts allowance. There's a lot of consumables you're using on jobs like screws and zip ties and tape and floor coverings and all of this stuff that many integrators aren't even charging for. Start with a small amount and work your way up. That's better than nothing, right? These are not costs of doing business. You guys have to be charging for these consumables. Finally, make sure you're measuring and tracking gross margin accurately so you know when things are improving, right? Because improving things on the bid stage is definitely an important step, but knowing how that feeds through the business as your jobs are completed, super critical. So my job here is nearly done. We now get to hear from the wonderful Chanel to take us through how D-Tools Cloud can help you guys maximize these factors. So I'm going to hand it off to Chanel. Rock and roll. Uh-oh. There we go. All right. I found you. Chanel, did I do it right?
No worries. Hang on here, Matt. Let me pull that up. If you can just go ahead and show the slideshow and just go ahead and drive that if you don't mind.
Oh, that's right. I was supposed to do that when you're ready to do your presentation. Okay, I'm taking back over. And
no worries.
All right, we're going to show that window. And boom.
All right. Thank you so much. So how can D-Tools Cloud help, right? So with D-Tools Cloud, you can create a standardized and repeatable process to ensure that you are maximizing every sales opportunity. And as Matt alluded to earlier, that means ensuring that you're accounting for products, accessories, miscellaneous parts, and labor accurately, right? There's a lot of opportunity during the sales process for things to fall through the cracks. So we want to help capture those costs and translate that onto the client. so that it provides insight so you know how profitable you are before you present your proposal to the client and can verify that this is a healthy opportunity for the business. All right. And then, if you don't mind, Matt, on to the next slide. So, at the root of all the tools that our solution provides is data, right? Data is king, and it's ever changing and it's complex. And we have some really nice tools in place to help automate that. So, D-Tools partners with a growing number of brands and suppliers. So you can access the products that you need quickly and build your proposals. And that includes images, descriptions, model numbers, user guides, still going, cut sheets, and even suggested installation time, right? So all that combined, we hope to provide you with a healthy head start on the products that you'll need and all the bells and whistles that go along with it so that you can quickly start closing business, right? Our library is a game changer because it helps reduce the time that dealers spend doing prep work and researching product info, updating pricing, and managing data. So, right, if we can add some hours back to your week, that's the goal here. And there's tools in place to help automate a lot of it. Okay, so speaking of automation, how do we help automate gross margin? So things to look for in a well-designed proposal solution, right? It means that your team can move quickly without sacrificing efficiency, right? It's flexible, it has dynamic properties, it has the correct composition that allows for you to capture those unforeseeable hiccups, right, that tend to pop up and chip away at your gross margin as you approach project completion. So some ideas on how D-Tools can help are by applying a global proposal adjustment for miscellaneous parts, or perhaps this particular project is more challenging than it usually is, and I'm going to just throw a difficulty factor for a particular phase on top. Just really all designed to help make sure that you're capturing the right amount of costs and maximizing each opportunity that comes through your door. So we want to, let's take the guesswork out of it, right? We really have a set it and forget it approach to quoting. We want you to accessorize your equipment. We want you to build packages. We want to provide visibility into your post-sale changes. And through automating this, it allows us to move more quickly and more efficiently. D-Tools Cloud is smart. The more you use it is the more that it shapes itself to how you like to work. The goal here is we want you to quickly just hit the ground running and start quoting. And based on the decisions that you make during the quoting process, we'll remember that and try to leverage that towards future decision making. So over time, it really is a powerful custom solution. And the top level goal, is really just we want to remove friction from your customer journey and making your internal processes a lot more repeatable and easier to scale. All right.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm gonna add something here if you don't mind, because I love that you pointed something out. I want to tie this together for everyone. The few things on this slide are so key, like change order management. And some of the data that we see with some of our integrators, especially when they're new on the Vital method, we're trying to pinpoint where some of the profit is being lost throughout the business. And labor productivity is one of those components, right? That's one of the biggest levers that we have in the integration business. And ultimately, as we start peeling back the layers, we actually find that change orders are this huge headache for many integrators when they're not only are there a potential profit opportunity or additional profit opportunity, but they, when you miss change orders, it has a huge negative impact on productivity because you're out there doing a bunch of free labor, right? So I love, Chanel, that you brought up this change order management piece and the scope creep piece, because that can be turned from a real negative, which I think is what a lot of integrators
Mm-hmm.
see. They see change orders as this pain in the butt, and it can turn into this fantastic profit opportunity because you're already in the middle of this job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these change orders may not always be large numbers, but one by one, as you start adding those into these jobs, they can make a significant change in the overall project size, gives you the opportunity to make the customer even happier with better stuff or a larger scope, and allows you to recoup some of that extra labor that you might not have thought about in the first place on that job. So I love that you brought that up, and the accessorization as well. I think is super key. So thanks for bringing that up.
Awesome. So at this time, let's go ahead and showcase some of what we've been talking about. I'm happy to run everyone through just some of the top line KPIs of the software. Okay, I'm going to show my screen. All right. Everyone seeing my screen, Matt?
Yep, I can see it. And I just want to encourage everybody who's here. Chanel and I purposely talked about what she's going to show. So this is not your standard DTools Cloud demo. She's going to show some really, really cool stuff here. So if you've ever seen DTools Cloud, or if you use it today, I want to encourage you to pay attention even further, because this is not your standard stuff. She's going to show some really cool things.
That's right. And then for those that are seeing the software for the first time, just to give you a little bit of context on what you're looking at, this is where the process really starts, right? On the opportunities Kanban board, where you've customized each of these columns to be a stage or a key milestone in your sales process. And you drag and drop the deals as they move towards becoming sold, or you get a signed contract, right? So just to talk high level workflow, when your customer electronically accepts and signs your proposal, you then create what we call a project. So a project to us is a sold opportunity. And that will drop the opportunity down to the projects tab, where you get another Kanban board that outlines your post-sale process. So earlier when we mentioned, defining your customer journey, making your process more repeatable, we hope that this UI really helps you at a glance see where is it, who's collaborating on it, and what is the next step in the process, right? So as Matt talked about change, right, we may not go into change orders today, but something that happens in the background when you convert an opportunity into a project is that we do get that firm compare point to run that delta and keep presenting those change order proposals to the client as they get excited and hopefully tack on more stuff, right? Okay, but I'm going to go right to the catalog and just kind of go through these tabs here, because it really is the gas to the engine, so to speak. The first thing that we want our users to do is go to the catalog and click Manage Pricing, right? These are some of the brands and suppliers that I've connected to. We partner with a lot. But to connect for the first time, you'll select Available Pricing and then hit that Request Access icon, agree to your super secret pricing, and then enter in your account number, right? So this is how we know how much the product costs you, and it will stay up to date thanks to our relationship with that supplier. So we're really excited about all the brands and suppliers that we've onboarded, and we're roughly adding about 2 to 3 a month. All right. Now to the products, we'll go. And this is just the library of my products, right? All the equipment that you sell. Again, you don't have to load it up with all the stuff. As you add products from our library to your catalog, we'll add that product in the background for you. But I wanted to take a closer look at what you're actually pulling down from the DTools library. So I'll search, and then I'll just select a product to view the details, right? So just to walk you through all of this, all these moving parts, we have the manufacturer name, the model number, the category. We're going to give you some images. Typically, there's a front view and a back panel view. You'll choose whatever icon you want to, thumbnail rather, that you want to represent this device on the proposal, right? Now, scrolling down to the pricing section, my cost is supplier set. And this is the crux of the benefit of integrated pricing, right? We know how much you paid for it, and we'll manage it for you. But what we don't know is what you'd like to sell it for, right? So you have a couple options in how to set your pricing. You can just type it in. Matt would love for you to come in here and work from the margin, and we'll do the math to show you what you'd need to sell that device for to achieve that goal. Or you can apply what we call a brand price rule if you prefer to paint with a broader brush. Matt would also enjoy this workflow because you can say, everything I, buy from, let's just say Snap, I, buy at cost plus 40%. And those kind of global rules would apply to all the equipment that you added to your proposals. So, but to take a step back, tying profitability to every product that you provide is how we'll always know how profitable we are on that proposal level prior to presenting to the client. Yes, Matt?
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things for for the attendees here that I love about what you're showing. You did bring up the brand price rule, which is awesome. I think even more powerfully is the category rule down at the bottom right. But before we even get there, the margin and markup thing I think is really substantial because the business world, if you will, looks at margin, and margin is the difference between what you buy it for and you sell it for, right? And so 40% margin is the calculation of the difference between those two numbers. Markup, however, is different. Markup is based on the cost price. So, for example, in this case, you see markup at 66%, which sounds like a big number, but that only equates to 40% margin. So what's really significant, and Chanel, forgive me if I'm stealing your thunder here, but it's really significant to choose your path and stick with it, because if your company is focused on markup, those numbers are going to be much larger than the margin figures that you hear us talk about and that you hear kind of the business world at large talk about. So if you're using margin as markup or vice versa, you can get in trouble there. But I just love what you guys have done with how simple this is, and also that you can see here that MSRP, we're actually selling this thing for less than MSRP if we're at 40% margin. And so that's fairly significant as well, right? So if we were to type in that MSRP of 103.95, we're seeing that we're giving away 4 percentage points of margin, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in $1 million business or a $3 million business, you think about for every 1% of gross margin in $1 million business, that's $10,000 at the end of the year. So 4% of gross margin across the board in just a $1 million business could be $40,000 at the end of the year. So commonly, we're meeting with dealers who are struggling to find employees, they're struggling to buy new vehicles, all these things that integrators struggle with. In many cases, those can be solved by greater margins and a more healthy financial standpoint in your business, because it can pay for some of those solutions. So anyway, I'll get off the soapbox. Wanted to point out.
Absolutely, Matt, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is a popular brand price rule, right? A lot of our users, because we provide the MSRP for products, they'll come in and say, you know what, let's just, as a best practice, we should always sell at retail, map the MSRP to my unit price. So that's another method in which you can globally set your pricing. All right, so now onto the labor. Again, every product that you download from the DTools library is going to have a suggested installation time associated to it, right? So we're going to give you a base. Labor is tricky for everyone, and dialing it in over time is something that all I've seen a lot of companies do, right? But we want you to start thinking about scaling and having your more junior team be able to sell with the right mix and margin, knowing that the architecture of how that product is designed meets the goals of the team, right? So we're going to give you that installation rate. It's really easy to adjust. If you guys have me on the team, you might want to, tack some hours on so you don't lose money. But tying time to equipment is our default best practice, and not, there's a lot of companies that prefer to manage labor different ways, and just know that you can manage that. We have all the tools to accommodate the different methods in which companies like to manage data, but our best practice recommendation default method is by tying time to product, right? So that's where we'll give you the installation rate. And just keep in mind that we have the ability for you to stack additional types of labor onto each product, right? So there's different types of labor that you sell at different rates. So you can really, really make sure that you're not leaving it up to the wind when a salesperson adds a product. Everyone in leadership can go through and make sure that this is the right mix and margin for this device. And then in our catalog, we're also going to be providing you with additional resources, right? So if the manufacturers provide any user guides, cut sheets, PDFs, we want to add that content here. Our proposals are multimedia, so your clients can actually engage with this living document and access this content from within the proposal. Okay, just to go through these tabs here really quickly, we're providing the specifications for the products and then accessories, right? This is another area where speed and accuracy may not align. So by loading the parent item up with all the bells and whistles that are required to successfully install that product and make it work, we want you to just basically set it and forget it. So accessories are a cool feature. I'm going to pop over to labor types really quickly, just to bring up something Matt mentioned earlier, the margin, right? As a best practice, Matt, 50% margin on the time that you sell.
Right. Yeah, 50% should be a minimum, and that should be based on your cost, and your cost should be twice your average wage.
All right. So this is a great space for you to continue that best practice. We also have allowances. An allowance is a placeholder for equipment. So more tools in your sales arsenal, so to speak, right? You may not know exactly what device you're trying to, or where you and the customer may land, but an allowance is a great scope and budget place to start. Matt wants a large TV. I can ask then, is your budget 5, 10, 15K, and then knowing that you have a product that you can specify that meets that price point. Packages, the number one way to automate your proposal process, right? If there's a grouping of equipment that you use repeatedly, we'd love nothing more for you to then sell it, group it, and save it for future packages, right? The cool thing about our application is there's always this job-specific global level. So adding a package to a quote, any changes that you make for that particular client, it's not going to overwrite your global package. So any additional challenges that you face and tweaks that you want to make on the job-specific level, we can capture those without overwriting the global package. And then lastly, alternate sets. We've identified this good, better, best option that tends to pop up through the sales process, and it's a lot of time, a lot of back and forth, and it can feel cumbersome for the client to undergo that sales experience. So we would love for you to group your packages, right? If you have packages that have the right mix and margin and you want to offer them what you recommend, maybe something a little bit more cost effective and then the higher best in class option, you can group product, equipment, labor, and have your customers choose what they want from inside the proposal, update the bottom line, and check out. So a really nice way to automate and speed up the sales process. And clients are having fun engaging with this living document. So things like packages, or perhaps, we sell these variety of cameras, pick the device that you'd like, or perhaps you want to pick the color, right? Doesn't move the needle, but it's one less thing that you have to pull over and modify and resubmit to the client. Okay, so that's the catalog. Thank you guys for letting me give you the deep dive there, but super, super important foundation for our solution. I'm going to go to the opportunities now, and I'm going to go inside an existing opportunity, and we'll select the quote. We're going to end up in the review section, but just to share what the quoting experience is like with DTools Cloud, you have a variety of ways that you can add equipment to your job. You can add it in a list, visual, or image method. List is the traditional style of adding a location and adding product to build your quote. Visual is the more modern style of uploading a floor plan and then searching for products and stamping icons on top to build your quote. Really nice space. And then third style is image, right? You can snap a photo and then do the same workflow. Stamp icons on top to build your quote. Great for retrofit projects and showing the customer what the finished installation will look like. So no matter what path you choose, you can mix and match. We recommend you bounce around, use all three. They all funnel into the same output of a proposal. Okay, so once you've built your bill of materials, our last stop is the review section, right? And this is where we're going to take a deep look into the makeup of this proposal. And there's a lot of different ways that you can slice and dice this data. So on the pricing summary tab, you can view it by location, by system, by phase, by category, right? Really nice insights there. I can see my subtotal. I've applied an adjustment. So an adjustment can be a discount or it can be a markup, right? So in this case, I have a dynamic adjustment and I have baked in 3% of my product and labor mix and just tack that on to the bottom line for every proposal that we share with the customer to make sure that we're capturing those zip ties and connectors and floor covers that Matt talked about there.
Love it. Beautiful.
Awesome. So you can have multiple adjustments. And then here's the total, and then here is the profit and our overall margin for this job. We're at 43%. So we're very close. We're approaching Matt's ideal 49%, right? So one of the more, well, they're all fun reports, but the product versus labor report is the one that's super impactful, right? You can see it in the list or you can kind of see it in the visual here. But we have product and labor mix and margin. So we're at a 70, roughly 30% here. So, want to let Matt kind of talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Chanel. So this is really where the rubber meets the road for everybody here who joined the meeting to learn about how to make more gross margin, and this is really where it happens. So what Chanel is showing us is that our mix on this job is 70% product, which that's bundling equipment and parts together, right? So that's where that 70% comes in. That's everything that's not labor. And then of course labor is about 29%. Now, if this is an average job, which it certainly looks to be based on some of the products and services that are in there, we should really shoot for a 35% labor mix. And across the board, we see the most common miss for integrators is on the labor side of the business. Again, we know what we're buying and selling our product for. The labor is a guess, and we're guessing too low as an industry. And so this 35%, if we get there, then that means that we're going to have more hours, more time, more labor dollars, which will equate to a better profit margin. See, D-Tools is fantastic, but right now for labor profit, it's relying on you to set the right number of hours and to set the right margin, right? So in this case, what we'd like to do, and Chanel is going to demonstrate this, we'd like to get up to closer to 35% mix, which means we need more labor, right? So she's going to show us how to quickly do that to add more labor globally in this job.
Right. So right from the pricing summary, I'm going to go ahead and select labor. And then now we're really looking at the granular composition of all the time that we've sold. I can see my rates, I can see the different types, and then you have this difficulty factor here. So you can increase or decrease the difficulty factor. In this case, we'll definitely be increasing it to adjust the overall amount of time sold. So I'm going to just go into this installation labor type, and I'll just make that 200%, which is going to double the duration, right? So just by that simple global change, when I go back to my summary and check out my product versus labor mix, you can see that we've went from, where were we, 30 to 44%, and then our overall margin was roughly 43, and now we're at 45. So still approaching that ideal scenario, but very easy change to make through the use of our software.
Yeah, and I would say, what Chanel just did is just demonstrated how easy it was. Of course, we overshot the goal on labor, but I think that's a great demonstration to say, hey, this is how flexible it is. And I want to encourage everyone, don't get too much hung up on the idea of difficulty, right? So the difficulty factor is just a way for you to globally adjust the number of hours for this project, right? And so what we might want to do in this case, so that we get closer to our target, when we doubled it, we went up by 15%, right? And so maybe we go to a difficulty level of maybe 125 or 150, and that helps us to get closer to that goal. And we kind of want to show you guys how this is done, right? You're going to go back and forth a little bit to see, hey, how close can we get to our goal? And what does that do for us, right? So now we're at, what is that, 33, 34, roughly? Yeah, so we're getting closer. And then you're always going to have a gut check moment, right? And that gut check moment is, hey, is this an average size job? Can I sell it for this price? And if so, let's do it. Let's get out there, because chances are this job is probably going to take more like 132 hours, which is what we're bidding, versus the 100 hours that we were bidding before, right? And this gets us a lot closer. Now that notched up our margin a little bit to 43%. The other way to improve your margins is to look at all your product, and we're not gonna have time to go through that today, but make sure you're maximizing your product margins, right? Are we selling all those products at full retail? Are we discounting any of them? Are we using products and vendors that are giving us the best pricing? And what Chanel is showing us, which is fantastic, this is margin by location, right? So where are we missing the mark? Oh, and the backyard. Wow, that, like, outdoor audio should be incredibly profitable, right? But we see 21%. What are we missing? Are we missing some high-end speakers, or where are we missing the boat there in the kitchen? The main entry, we have some really strong margin. This is a really cool page that I don't know if everybody's using. I'd love to see this by system too, right? So if you click on the systems over there, like, hey, which systems are making us money, which ones aren't? It looks like security is highly profitable, but the AV system is not. Maybe there's a television with some low margin. This is a great opportunity to take literally 5 minutes before you put this proposal out and just know where the margins are and are not so that you can help to maximize those margins. And it's literally little tweaks here and there, right? If you can't get from 43% to 49%, don't stress. Just see what you can do on the next one to improve. Continual improvement will get you closer.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And that concludes the software demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to you.
Awesome. That was great, Chanel. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Let's see. Okay, you guys should be able to see my presentation. Are we good on that?
We are.
All good.
Okay, awesome. So as I mentioned earlier, the first step in improvement is to know where you start and really to measure those metrics that you want to improve, because once something is measurable, it can be improved. So we talked really in depth about gross margin. There's about 28 success metrics that we've identified over the last 15 years in how to optimize a custom integration business. And we don't make the mistake of trying to optimize all 28 at the same time. We knock them out one at a time or maybe choose a couple. But ultimately, these KPIs or key performance indicators, once they're measured and visualized, you can actually change those outcomes, right? So what you're seeing here is an example of our cloud connected dashboards that represent your business visually by connecting directly to your QuickBooks desktop or online file. And the cool thing is this shows you the outcomes, right? Because the proposal is the first step. The financial transactions are the recording of what actually happened. And so this allows you to reduce the chaos and improve all of your results and decision making in the business when you can see things right in front of you. Now, while our dashboards do require some upfront changes to your reporting and processes, we offer a one-time snapshot into those same 28 metrics without really any work on your part. This financial benchmarking service provides direct insights into your business around the metrics that we've been discussing today and the ones that I showed you on the prior screen. So what we do, we take your financials in whatever shape they're in, doesn't matter what they look like, and we normalize that against our benchmarks and show you those 28 data points and benchmark your performance against the best performing integrators across the country. And we do that through a 1-hour meeting with a professional Vital coach to uncover those hidden opportunities and threats that you may not see today. So this service is normally $497, and 100% of our clients who've been through this process say that it's worth every penny. Today, we've opened up 30 opportunities to get $300 off of this service on behalf of D-Tools. And for D-Tools only on this presentation, we will also include a link to download a bid pricing worksheet. So that makes it simple to implement all of these suggestions that Chanel and I are talking about today. That also includes a video on how to use that worksheet, so it can immediately change your business and allow you to see a much more improved gross margin and at the end of the year, net margin. So go ahead and use this QR code or the link to take advantage of this $300 off. And thank D-Tools for providing this opportunity for you guys today. And I'll let Chanel talk about what D-Tools is bringing to you.
Yeah, so for
Nice.
those users that aren't familiar, we do have a trial that you can use at d-tools.cloud. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes for you to go ahead and register for your DTools Cloud subscription. And then once you're inside the software, you can activate using some of our coupon codes. We already started our Black Friday, so feel free to enter this promo code in at checkout to get 20% off your first year or 15% off your first 3 months. I'll be following up with you with these links as well. But yeah, we're excited for you guys to start playing with the application.
That's a big deal, 20% off.
It is.
Very cool. Well, we'll wrap with any questions. I didn't see anything come over on the chat, but of course we didn't prompt you guys. Anybody have any questions that we can answer for you in the last 5 minutes that we have together? Go ahead and drop those into the chat box. Or raise your hand. I think that's an option. Like not physically, but some button pushing raising your hand. Oh. Okay, Barry's been answering questions. You rock, Barry. Thank you. Any questions that we didn't get to, Barry?
Not yet, not as of yet. I got a one compliment said that they're using DTools Cloud and they think it's great. That's from Jason Arnett.
Cool.
And Chanel got direct kudos.
Awesome. I see one, Matt. You know, how long does the typical initial exercise take once they sign up and go through that workshop?
For the financial benchmarking?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the financial benchmarking is only about 10 to 15 minutes of work on the integrator's part. So they have, it's just reports that come right out of QuickBooks and some information about their team. They send that over to us and we take about a week or two to go ahead and do that analysis. And usually the week or two is simply based on our calendar, right? And after a week or two, you meet with that coach for about an hour. So the whole process, depending on how long it takes the integrator to get those reports to us, the whole process can be a week or two or a month. Just depends on how quickly they can turn around those reports. And the reports that we're looking for are very simple. You know, many integrators get hung up on like, oh my God, my financials are a mess. That's okay. Send us what you have, and we're really good at making sense of that stuff.
Hey, Chanel, I've got one for you. Somebody's asking about plans for cloud to support field service management. I know you can handle that.
So yeah, we support field users, technicians today, but we are working on our service management suite, right? So that's due out late this year / early Q1 of next year. But yeah, really excited to debut those capabilities. It's kind of twofold, right? There's service management is a huge umbrella. There is a sales portion of it and selling service contracts and increasing the likelihood of your customers, you know, opting for the service plan at the initial signing, right? We want customers for life. The project completion is not the finish line, so we want to enable that model for our customers. And then post-sale will be the dispatch, right? You'll be able to dispatch a task to a technician. They'll be able to, you know, text the client that they're on the way, very quickly view all the service history that you've had prior to that technician coming out. And the super exciting piece is the ability to capture payment and invoice from the field, right? Matt talked about changes. There's always a potential sale that could pop up when you send a technician out to service a client that is not covered by one of your service plans. So I want to make it easy for them to wrap it up right then and there. But yes, super exciting stuff that our dev team's working on.
All right, I got two more that I'll try to get in here real quick before the end. Sean wanted to know about the Canadian market and how many vendors are available in DTools. We currently have about a dozen, but we're adding more and more vendors from the Canadian market as we speak. The typical rule of thumb is they have to have a unique Canadian cost. We don't add partners that have a calculation from US to Canadian dollars. So just look for more stuff to come on that side, both manufacturers and distributor partners. And then Todd had a question about updating cost and pricing on an opportunity after it's been sent to a customer. If you're in cloud, the cost should update automatically, regardless of if you send it to the customer or not. If it's turned into a project, that those dollars are kind of cooked already because you've accepted, the customer's accepted the quote, and you're kind of on your own at that point, unless you want to try to do a change order.
And there's a little piece there that I think maybe they were referring to, Barry, is if you've quoted a customer and they go dark, right? You have a setting where you can refresh your quote against the catalog. That way,
yeah,
we never want to modify something retroactively that you've shared with a customer, right? So you have to make those extra 2 clicks. But if you would like to refresh your pricing, you have that capability.
There you go.
That's awesome. And that ties back to the expiration date, right? If you put a 30-day expiration date and they're past that, you really should be updating that pricing, especially today with so many vendor price changes.
And
otherwise,
Matt, you can lock it. You can lock the proposal by setting an expiration date. That's one of the features that we added last quarter. So they can't even accept it. It's an optional feature. But if you want to just say, hey, you know, my costs will be changed too dramatically. You can't even buy this after this date. That's an awesome feature.
Absolutely. Very cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Chanel and Barry, for providing this opportunity for all of these dealers, and just super excited to share this information. So thank you guys, and have a wonderful rest of the week.